All right, so this is file 25-93381FH for sentencing. Counsel, you want to state your appearances, please?
Zachary McLennan for the people.
Devin Pomeranke on behalf of defendant Jerry Courtman. I am privately retained, not in the DC County.
Okay. And we're here for sentencing on, looks like a charge of possession intent to deliver methamphetamine, habitual third. That's a 40-year maximum. Guidelines were initially scored at 78 to 195. Also, possession with intent to deliver cocaine over 50 grams, habitual third. That's a 40-year max. Those guidelines were scored at 99 to 240. There's also charges of maintaining a drug house, habitual third, 4-year maximum, felon in possession, habitual third, a 10-year maximum, possession intent to deliver oxycodone, habitual third, 40-year maximum, possession intent to deliver hydrocodone, habitual third, 40-year maximum, and maintaining a drug vehicle, habitual third, a 4-year max. Okay, Mr. Pomeranke, go ahead with any argument you wish to make.
Your Honor, I don't have any argument just by way of allocution.
Yes, that's right.
Your Honor, we've in fact been before you before. It is no secret that Mr. Courtman has substantially struggled with a problem with substances. Mr. Courtman, for most of his entire life, worked with his hands, both on trades and on vehicles. At this later part in his life, he has become more bound to his chair and limited by his mobility, his energy, and everything else. That's the premise and excuse that he used for himself to continue using and to support his habits, and the urge and the need to do that in order to get what he thought was justifiably more things done. Mr. Courtman has since ran on a road in that regard. He thought this was a way, I think, to sustain himself or support himself, and well, he was caught. He understands the gravity of this, and he accepts that he's made a substantial mistake. With that, Your Honor, there's not much more I can say besides my last point. Mr. Courtman sits before you a very fragile man. He sits before you a fragile man. The guidelines that we have before us today are substantial for anybody, but especially somebody with potentially limited time, somebody who has sustained some pretty serious health things in the last few years and has some more to look forward to. I understand that the court has the ability to, and the discretion to impose consecutive sentencing. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to do concurrent sentencing. If the prosecutor persuades me otherwise, I'll give you some rebuttal time. But this is just a bunch of drugs in the car and in the home. I'm not sure that there's aggravating circumstances beyond that. The fact that it was just the amount and the different substances that would warrant the imposition of consecutive sentencing. Thank you, Your Honor. That saves me some time and you some time. With that, Your Honor, I would just ask that the court consider the low end of the guidelines, which is still a substantial amount of time for somebody with potentially limited time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Courtman, you don't have to say anything to me today, but you're welcome to. Is there anything you want to say today, sir?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. McLennan, recommendations from the people.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Defendant is 64 years old. He has 5 prior felonies, 6 misdemeanors, 9th grade education. We're here today, Your Honor, obviously for, you said there was a lot of drugs found in his car and his home. I note in his criminal history, it wasn't too long ago that he was before you for similar charges in Sheboygan County. Looks like there was delivery charges there, firearm charges as well. So here we are today, 5 years later, and we're seeing more of the same, but I think that this one is more serious, Your Honor, both in terms of repeating the offense and in terms of quantity of drugs found. In my discussions with Hunt, I've been told that this is among the largest, if not the largest, drug bust in Prescott history. And defendant made the choices. He made the choice to go downstate and get these drugs. He made the choice to bring them up into our community, into our county, and then further distribute the drugs in our county. And it's an offense, Your Honor, I would submit that isn't just ending at the handing off of the drugs to someone else. You're profiting off the pain of the addictions of others. And I believe then the downstream effects of drugs in our community are horrendous. Increased crime, the impact it has on families, probably the economic impact it has on our community. So I think there's a lot of ancillary effects to drug crimes, and especially when it's at this quantity. I don't think he learned his lesson. Obviously, he did not learn his lesson in 2021 in Sheboygan, and he's amped things up since then. I think the guidelines really do reflect the seriousness and the impact of the crime here, Your Honor. I'm seeing 99 months on the low end. I don't think that properly accounts for what's happened here and what has been happening. I think that 15 years, 20 years is a more appropriate number, Your Honor. And that's within the guidelines as I understand them to be. Your Honor, based on all of this and the repeat nature of the offense and the impact it has, which I submit is tremendous, I would ask the court to fashion a sentence somewhere between 15 to 20 years. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, well, this case involves several serious charges with significant guidelines, ranges, discretionary consecutive sentencing. This case involves the defendant making essentially drug runs downstate for further trafficking, not just that he's going down. We see a lot of times somebody with their own drug problem going downstate, buying some drugs for themselves and a little bit more to boot so that they can sell it to some other friends to continue to support their cycle of use. Those are deliveries, but they're not, they're not really trafficking deliveries. This did involve significant quantities found in Mr. Courtman's vehicle and in his home: methamphetamine, cocaine, both powder and crack, and various pills. And there's evidence that he was selling that to other people who would in turn sell it to others. So Mr. Courtman was pretty significantly involved in drug trafficking in our community of some very harmful substances that really destroy lives and families. And I had him in 2021 in a Sheboygan drug case, not as serious as this, and I gave him 6 months in jail. I had him in 2022 in Prescott County on a drug case, again, not nearly as significant as this, but again, I only gave him 6 months in jail. So, I guess folks listening to that would be perhaps justified in thinking, well, gee, shame on the judge, 6 months didn't do the trick. Trying to give people every opportunity to make changes and better themselves. And Mr. Courtman didn't take those opportunities, but really kind of doubled down on his involvement in the drug trade. Also, he's got a loaded pistol at his home. Some counts have discretionary consecutive sentencing. As I mentioned, here I would impose concurrent sentencing for the reason that there's no aggravating factors between the counts themselves, but merely a function of the fact that there were different controlled substances. So I don't think that's the kind of situation that calls for consecutive sentence. But for all these reasons, I believe that the guidelines do adequately take into account the seriousness of the circumstances of this offense and this offender. However, his repeated pattern of drug crimes in the 2020s here does not call for a low end of the guideline sentence. I believe that a proportionate sentence, in addition to the standard fines and costs, would be a sentence at about the 2/3 mark of those advisory guidelines. So for those reasons, this is my sentence, Mr. Courtman. On count 4, possession with intent to deliver methamphetamine, habitual third, with the guidelines range of 78 to 195 months advisory. I'm going to commit you to the Michigan Department of Corrections for a term of not less than 13 years, nor more than 40 years, exercising my discretion to increase the statutory maximum under the habitual statute. Give you credit for 381 days previously served. There is fines and costs, $468 in state costs, $130 in crime victims assessment, $350 in court costs. As to count 5, maintaining a drug house habitual third, going to commit you to the Michigan Department of Corrections for a term of not less than 2 years, nor more than 4 years, increasing the statutory maximum under the habitual statute in my discretion, with credit again for 381 days served. Count 6, felon in possession of firearm habitual third, commit you to the Michigan Department of Corrections for a term of not less than 5 years, no more than 10 years. Again, using my discretion to increase the habitual statutory maximum. Again, credit for 381 days served. Count 10, possession with intent to deliver more than 50 grams of cocaine habitual third. Going to sentence you at the 2/3 mark of the guidelines to 16 years in prison or 193 months. Anything further from the people?
Oh, Your Honor.
Anything further from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
We're going to go ahead. It's 10:45. We're going to take a break till 11 a.m. and try to cool.
All rise, please.